Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of a series called Teaching the Heart, where we dive into one of the most overlooked but most important parts of growing up, learning how to understand our emotions. I'm your host for today, Allison Cook, and I'm an 18-year-old in college at Clemson University as a freshman. And I wanted to start with a quick little confession. Ever since I was little, I grew up watching Disney movies with princes falling in love instantly, couples living happily ever after, and everything feeling like a simple, magical, and fate-driven spell. But as I got older, none of that lined up with what I saw around me. Not in my house, not in my friendships, and not in my own experiences. I realized something huge. I had absolutely no baseline of understanding what healthy love actually looks or feels like. And the worst part about this is I'm not alone. Middle schoolers across the country are thrown into new emotions, crushes, friendships shifting, anxiety, and pressure with zero emotional education to help them navigate it. We teach them algebra and photosynthesis and all the parts of a cell, but not how to recognize heartbreak, or how to communicate their feelings, or how to understand the difference between real love and that infatuated crush. As it's become something I'm very passionate about, today's episode will be about changing this standard. I'll be sharing the research from my own work on emotional intelligence in youth, talking about why schools should teach emotional education along sex ed as a co-requisite, and later I'll be interviewing someone who saw me go through all of this in real time and has gone through this herself, my mom. So let's start at the core question. What do kids actually need to understand about love, emotions, and the brain that we aren't teaching them in schools? Let's now transition into the first segment of our podcast, why emotions need to be taught. Psychologists like Ellen Wolfe explain that true love is rooted in emotional depth and connection, not just attraction, that sense of butterflies, or obsession. That sounds simple enough, but kids aren't born knowing that. Other scholars, like Tobor, break down the big three kinds of love: romantic, parental, and spiritual. And what's wild is that all three share the same foundations: empathy, patience, compassion, and healthy communication. These are skills. Skills that kids should be taught, but aren't. And here's the kicker. Sex education is taught in middle school. You might be saying, well, sure, but that's biological. It's teaching kids about how their bodies work. Well, here's the other kicker. What about their brains? What about their hearts? How do those work? We explain anatomy and biology, but we don't explain how to recognize when someone is manipulating you, or what healthy affection looks like, or feels like, or how to process big feelings without shame. Sarah Regan describes true love as calm, steady, secure, not impulsive, not chaotic, not anxiety producing. Imagine if kids knew that. Imagine if I had known that. The research shows that it could directly improve academic performance, decrease stress levels, and even create more stable peer relationships on campus. Kids don't need adults to teach them how to be emotional. They already are. They need adults to teach them how to understand those emotions. Now on to our next segment. What science says about love. One of my favorite parts of my research was learning that emotions aren't fluffy or vague. They're actually biological. Harvard neuroscientist Sue Edwards explains how the brain releases oxytocin and dopamine when we feel connection, affection, or trust. Kids don't know that, but imagine how empowering it would be for them to learn. Hey, that fluttery panic you think is love, that's dopamine, and anxiety can feel a lot like excitement. Hand in hand, Bianca Acevedo's work shows something powerful. Couples who have been together 20 plus years show the exact same brain activity as newly in love couples, meaning real love lasts, and it's measurable. Then we have studies on culture, how family background, expectations, gender roles, and cultural norms all shape how kids perceive relationships. Teaching this would give students space to understand why they feel things differently than someone else, and that both are okay. The bottom line, emotions are teachable. Love is understandable. And kids deserve that education. The parent perspective. It's one thing for me to read studies, write a paper, and then talk about it all with you. And it's an entirely other thing to hear from someone who actually watched me struggle with all of this. So now I want to bring in someone who has been there through every confused crush, every fear, every wall I built up. My mom. Let's give her a warm welcome, shall we? Hi, Mom. Thank you so much for being here. Say hi to our listeners. You're live.
Hello. Great to be here.
All right, Mom. So for the sake of the podcast, feel free to be as brutally honest as you want. No need to fluff up any answers or anything for me, okay?
All right. There's no brutality here.
All right. So the podcast and I are just super excited to hear your perspective as a parent to both me and my current middle school aged brothers.
All
right. So I'll just start off by asking you a quick little question. So when you think back to me in middle school, what do you remember about how I handled emotions or relationships?
So I think you were really solid. Like, you were not highs and lows. I saw some of your friends starting to go on that hormonal journey of, those highs and lows. And I thought you were always very steady. I know that it's a time when you question yourself and you question what friends you are hanging out with, and do you want to be in the popular group, or do you want to be in a group that you feel comfortable in? So I thought you navigated it quite impressively. COVID did hit in your 7th and 8th grade year, so that took away some of the social aspects. But I thought you did a great job of finding true friendships, ones that didn't treat you like trash one day and a queen the next day. I thought that you handled yourself very maturely.
Aw, thank honestly. You. Yeah, middle school was definitely a strange time. But I mean, there was a lot of confusion that I think like I went through, not just me, but like all kids at that middle school age kind of go through. And again, what do you think contributed to just the confusing time of middle school? Was that like media, school, or part of being a kid?
I think a lot of it is to do with being a kid. As you can see in your brothers, the kids are growing at very different rates. Allie's brothers they look like full-grown men at 13. They are, tall and filled out and having facial hair. So that hormones are different for them as opposed to still maybe in 4th grade. So hormones are a big thing. Girls also are developing at a different rate, and they're pushing things on boys. Social media. I love one of your lines that social media, you had written this in one of your papers, I think one time, that social media makes you think of perfection and it's not possible. I don't remember how you said that, but you had a really great line about it. But I think social media contributes a lot to that, and having to always post great things about yourself, and then it makes you start questioning, why do I not have as many great things to post about myself as potentially another person does? So a lot of contributing factors, I think, go along with it.
Yeah, you brought up also just kind of comparing boys and girls and them developing at different rates. I know that my brothers, or at least the boys right now, Sean and Dan, they've kind of had to face a little bit about that. Could you talk about what you think some major differences maybe are between like the boys and the girls in middle school?
Good question. So you would think, looking at your brothers, you would think that they would have the emotional maturity to go along with their bodies. maturity, but I don't think that always happens at the same time. I don't know enough about hormonal differences and balances and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that the girls, I have read studies on in school that girls are able to sit longer and to focus on things. So they have a different mentality in school. And I think that they start to be able to outsmart the boys in middle school, and they kind of rule what's going on. And whatever the girls are in middle school kind of sets the mode or the feeling of the whole grade.
Interesting.
So if you've got secure girls, then you can have a secure class.
Very interesting. Okay. So yeah, just in terms of my research, I think that's really beneficial to know that you think that it's girls. Well, obviously they do mature faster, but yeah, maybe reaching them would be most important. Interesting.
Yeah, I think girls can dominate a lot of how a grade functions. And as I think I've said before to you in discussions where, like, your Uncle Mark, his grade was totally dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
They were into a lot of problems. The teachers always commented how they were a difficult class to control. And my class was great and never had problems. And then Uncle Matt's class, I don't remember. Probably dysfunctional.
Huh. So your class was just like the best girls, is what I'm hearing.
I think so. I think that we had some good leadership in that grade, not letting people run wild and, kind of stay within their means.
Go, Mom. Okay. Well, as a parent, did you ever feel that maybe schools didn't help kids understand their emotions like they should? And what would your perspective be on maybe teaching that, like, emotional intelligence that I've been talking about in my research as a part of middle school curriculum?
Yeah, I thought your paper was great. When I read it, it's had me thinking now for the last week since I've read it, and I've talked about it with Jen and Danielle, like I said I would.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like giving too much power to the schools because they can do things wrong. Like how they've been given the ability to talk about sex education. I'm not sure that starting it in 6th grade is the right thing, or in 5th grade. I don't know what they teach you so much in 8th grade. I don't know. I don't like giving them too much control. So I was trying to figure out where was a better spot for them to talk about it. And I think what's lacking is church. I think that God has been removed too much from your age group. And society as a whole. And I think that maybe that is where emotional sexual intelligence needs to be brought up more, and giving people the backbone to say, no, I'm not ready for it. As opposed to social media sexualizing everything and the kid feeling like, well, I've got to do it. This is what is right. And while I may not feel comfortable with this, this is what society says I'm supposed to do. I've been watching a lot of time period pieces, like in the 1800s, the 1700s, and purity was such an important thing. And our society has gotten away from that.
Interesting.
I'm kind of rambling here, but
no, yeah. I think you made some great points, and I think it's very interesting, like, just hearing, like, your perspective about it. And I mean,
and let me add one more thing on there too.
Yeah.
If when they do teach sex education, I do think they need to balance it more, like your paper said, with emotional development. That there are so many downsides to being sexually active. When you're young, you can catch diseases that go with you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You can become emotionally insecure, and when you start, having sex with another boy, like you feel like that's your territory, and it really affects your relationships in school, your girlfriend relationships. I don't think that the kids that think that they're having sex, they think they're the mature ones. I don't think they are.
Okay.
Some of them are.
Understood. Just to, I guess, get back on track a little bit. A lot of what I've been really researching and thinking would be important to teach kids in school is just really not just emotional intelligence in romantic relationships, but that go along with friendships and just relationships for the rest of your life. I know the golden rule was something that was kind of very huge in like elementary school, and it was, kind of developing that, empathy that kids should have, and being kind to others, how to include others, all of those kind of topics. And yeah, I just think aside from just the sexual education part of it, how would you feel about emotional intelligence being taught kind of in like a broader standpoint, since you're a little bit worrisome about what schools already are teaching kids just about romantic relationships?
Yeah, I think like schools can do better with the books that they want you to read. They can do better with, I don't know if it's videos, I'm not sure what they all show you, but I think maybe the books that they have you read set a stage. Sorry, I'm not having a real good answer on that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, obviously, that's a big doubt of parents is, they want to make sure that they're kind of majority in control of how their kids are being raised. And I think you raised like a great issue that parents might have with what I'm necessarily putting forward as an idea.
Yeah,
So,
and like
thank you.
You can have great teachers. Like think back to some of your wonderful teachers. Miss Crossway would probably be somebody who could do a great job of teaching it, but she's relatively normal to me and my beliefs in life. And is there another family that they say, no, she is not the same as me, so I don't want her teaching her values to my child?
Interesting.
And
yeah.
So again, like our country was founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs. And if we got back to that, that works for me. That would be great if we had more God in our schools and Christian beliefs, the golden rule, like you talk about. But that's not okay for other cultures in our melting pot here. So it's really difficult to talk about it in school. I think that you go back to something that everybody can believe in, is do unto others as they would have you do unto, I'm not saying it right, do unto you.
Yeah.
The golden rule. So I think that's a great point that you brought up, that if you continue to follow the golden rule, that could be a great starting point.
Awesome. Yeah, I just think that setting a baseline of those kind of morals for kids at that very impressionable age that I think middle school is, and giving them someone to kind of, I guess, look to for those answers. It doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher, but maybe if there was like a guest speaker or kind of like someone that could come to the school and give like one overall lesson about it, rather than it being I guess so standardized and talked about. I think that could be possibly beneficial to kids. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
So, awesome. All right, just to wrap up here, I guess, if you could say one more thing to parents listening and everyone listening about emotional education, or just the topic in general, what would that be?
Well, every child's different. So looking at you, Allie, and then looking at your brothers going through, you're different people and in middle school at the same age. Boys may never have the same emotional intelligence that some of the girls do. And I think you've had really high emotional intelligence all your life. There was a time that we were in Texas and we were asking if we should hold you back just because all the other kids were so much older than you. And just for your listeners, Texas pushes their kids forward a lot or holds them back. So they're older in high school, and mostly for sports, aka football. They want their 19-year-old boys to be playing high school football. So we had asked one of your teachers, and they were absolutely not. Allison is so mature for her age that she would be bored. So
yeah. Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say about me. Clearly, this is my mom that I'm having a conversation with.
So kids, they're always going to question relationships, and there's so many things thrown at you at a young age. That's why, you don't have voting rights until you're 18. That's why you're not allowed to drink until you're 21, because there's so much going on. And so we don't want to put total guardrails on you, but talking about things, knowing your child and how each child is different is important.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mom.
Love you, kid.
Love you too.
All right.
The importance of teaching the heart. I want to leave parents and other listeners with this. Kids aren't confused because they're dramatic. They're confused because no one teaches them how emotions work, which, to be fair, is not an easy or obvious thing to teach kids. The purpose of this podcast is not to guilt parents or throw any more responsibilities your way. I know that between carpools, temper tantrums, and every possible thing that can be spilled being spilled, you're all doing amazing. What I want to draw your attention to is the natural confusion kids develop going through puberty, being exposed to media, and by witnessing what other kids might be doing or displaying as normal. Young and impressionable minds gather a wide array of ideas by being surrounded by their peers in middle school, and it's my belief that alongside the life skills they're learning from parents and older siblings at home, learning about their emotions at school with their peers would be an additional and very beneficial piece of their education as little humans. We wouldn't expect children to understand algebra without lessons, or to drive a car without any instruction. So why would we expect them to navigate love, heartbreak, communication, boundaries, and self-worth completely on their own? With parents like your support, nationwide change could be realized. Education should be, and often is, about more than just understanding a topic, but rather understanding and being able to use this knowledge in real life. A focused curriculum of emotional intelligence as a co-requisite to sexual education being taught in middle school would do just that. There is so much research pointing us towards this conclusion, and it's very clear. Emotional intelligence improves mental health, academic success, social behavior, and long-term relationship stability. Not only is there immense research leading us to act, but there is much valuable information within the research we discussed that could be included in this new curriculum for students. The things I have learned about my own emotions during this research process as a freshman in college have given me confidence, answered questions, and assured me that I'm not alone. Teaching emotions isn't extra. It's essential. If we want healthier kids, healthier schools, healthier families, I truly believe that we have to start by teaching the heart. Thank you for listening, and thank you for caring about the emotional lives of the next generation. Until next time.